Good morning, Amy Lassen.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning. I'm Charlie Bengal, CEO of Remax Allegiance, and my co-host is Amy Lassen, associate broker with Remax Properties in Colorado Springs, and she is also our company trainer, company coach. Maybe that's a better. We don't have an official title. Company trainer slash coach slash motivator slash. Okay, good morning. It's good to see you. We just got back from what I thought was a good Tom Ferry Summit last week.
Yeah.
Talked about a changing market, perhaps a recession coming. Everybody except one person in the country seems to think a recession is coming, but the guy in the White House says, "Oh, we're good." But then I read this morning that the government is looking to maybe do a payroll tax cut to bolster the economy that is so amazing it doesn't need to be bolstered. So I don't know what's happening. I don't think anybody knows for sure, but I do know that this is a good market and we should be taking advantage of a good market, making as much money as we can before the market eventually changes. I think we can all agree that the market will eventually change. Eventually, we're not going to have 3.65 interest rate. I actually had a client tell me this morning, he was across the settlement table, I think yesterday, from somebody who had a loan from Santander Bank. The rate was 2.9. So I'm like going on Santander Bank, right? I've not had an opportunity to look into it. So maybe it was in, one of those areas where Santander needed to spend, extra money due to issues or, whatever, and grants or, I don't know. I just thought that was a pretty extraordinary rate. So what we do know is the economy is decent at the moment. Unemployment's low, interest rates are low, and none of this lasts forever.
Right.
So one of the themes I think last week was make as much money as we can now, stockpile cash for when things do slow down, because they will eventually.
Yeah.
And Tom also talked about becoming the agent of the future. So we know that there's $90 billion in commissions that are going to be paid in the US this year. And we've seen all these disruptors and interlopers and other villains coming in to try to take a piece of the pie, right? And that's Redfin offering 1% listings almost anywhere in the country now. And if you log into their app, not that I do, but if you were to log into their app, the first thing that pops up, it says, 1% listings before the whole app actually comes up. That is fairly new in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
You have companies like Open Door, not available in the DC metro market, but available in many markets where they will give you an offer on your home. The seller doesn't have to market it, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have other companies that are just coming in to want to take a piece of that $90 billion. So what do we need to do to get better so we can save our piece of the 90 billion? That was one of the themes last week. And the agent that does not adapt will die, right? And Tom said that. And if you're an older agent, and you only want to be in business for the next few years and you want to retire, you're probably good, right? You're probably good resting on your laurels, relying on your sphere, past clients. But everybody else that's out there that is in this for the longer term, I think that there's some challenges ahead.
Yeah.
And so he talked about 5 ways to become the agent of the future. Do you want to go through that list? Do you want me to? Do you want me to throw them out and you kind of opine on them? Or
go for it, because I don't have them in front of me.
Cool. So number 1 was marketing and business development. So how are we getting business?
The 5 things a great agent's got to have.
Yes. Marketing and business development was number 1.
Yep.
Brand building was number 2.
Okay.
Trusted advisor consultations, AKA presentations, was number 3. The ability to transfer skills to a team to maintain relevancy and continuity of experience with those team members. That's probably the hardest one, actually. Probably the hardest one. And Tom Bill, you spoke about that on Friday, right? Somebody asked the question about how do I grow? And I'm a control freak. And anyway, And then the fifth one is negotiation mastery.
Sure.
So those are the five. Why don't we start with, and you made a point yesterday when we were preparing for the show, that we're going to talk about a number of different subjects today, but we want the agents that are watching to just take back 1, 2 at the most ideas and work on those. And when that's done, then add the next idea and work on that. And then add the next idea and work on that.
Yeah.
So building these pillars, if you will, before we start construction on the next one. Don't add to the house until you've built the house.
Right.
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 So marketing and business development, what are your thoughts on that?
I want to back up.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with my group accountability yesterday, and it was fascinating how quickly it devolved into being a political argument. And so for anyone listening who heard what Charlie said, and they already got their hackles up about whether or not we have the right president and whether or not the economy is changing or will change, what I challenged them all with, like I just stopped it. I didn't engage in that conversation. Yeah. Okay, do you have 6 months money in the bank? Every single one of them said no. I said, are you consistently marketing to your sphere of influence? Every single one of them admitted that they were not. I said, okay, guess what? Whether you believe it or not, it's time to get your ducks in a row.
Right.
And it always was. So for those who don't feel the need to be concerned, cool. Are you still doing best practices, right? So what you said about building a house, right?
Yes.
I say to my coaching clients, you don't get to hang curtains. You don't have windows yet,
right?
No hanging curtains.
Yeah, yes.
Foundation, walls, and windows.
Right.
So anyway, as you jump in and go through these, I want everyone listening, yes, to cherry pick the few, but be thinking about that strong foundation and making sure that you're doing best practices, right? No fancy dance steps. We want the basics right now.
Right. No, I like it. I like it. And even if we're in a good place, I have to say this, even if we're in a good place economically now, we all know that real estate is cyclical, and we all know that a 10-year run is not sustainable. At some point, things will change. There's people watching that think that this is just the way the market is.
Yeah.
There's always multiple offers, right? Yeah. It's always a great time to sell, right? Yeah. And we talked last week about what's good is that the next recession, whenever it is not going to be driven by housing, right? It's going to be driven by maybe a little frothy stock market, a geopolitical issue, think North Korea, right? Or Iran.
College debt.
College debt. That wasn't mentioned last week, but yes.
So many things.
Yes, college debt. And housing, I think when Harney was talking to us was like way down at like number 7 or 8 is like, what could be the causes of the next recession? So, luckily we're not doing the liar loans and the 0 down interest only 3-1 ARM. And you can refinance in 3 years because your house will have appreciated 20%. And then we go to do that. Prices went down 10%. You can't refinance and you can't afford the payment. So that's not going to happen. But since we're talking about this whole economic thing, our clients are going to immediately think the last recession, oh my gosh, it's a terrible time to buy. Housing prices are going to collapse. I'm going to get a deal later, right? And everything else. And, that's just not the case. And I think we saw a slide last week that showed it was either 2 or 3 of the last 4 or 5 recessions, housing prices actually went up. Now, the last recession, nationwide housing prices went down by 20%. So that was the outlier. But the point is, I don't think that we need to be worried about this collapse of housing prices and the world is not ending, although we may have some clients that think that the world is ending, and it's up to us to educate them. We were challenged last week by Harney that it is our obligation to educate them, which I thought was interesting, right, as being top agents. So, that's all good.
You're making an excellent point. The definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP.
Correct, right.
That's it. That's
it.
What it means.
Yep.
So when someone says a recession is coming, do not imagine the Great Depression. They're not synonymous.
Right.
That's
very
fair.
good. That is a good, that's a good way to wrap that up, that part of the discussion. Okay, so marketing and business development, and frankly, this goes right back to what you were talking about, even fearing past clients.
Yeah.
It's marketing to them and it's business development to them, right? And if we're doing that at a high level, as we talked about, I think on the last show, then 10% of them should be buying, selling, or referring. We have talked about that so many times. Yet there are so many agents out there that are not getting that level of referrals from their sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So marketing and business development, that could be everything from, I think that you would agree, let's start with people who know us, like us, and trust us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sphere of influence, past clients, and then add the next one. Once we're level 10 there, then we can go to, is it FSBOs? Is it expireds? Is it farming? Is it a BNI group, right? We talked last week about starting your own BNI group, right? If you can't get into one because they're too competitive, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said at the beginning of the call, I know you don't want to see, and I don't want to see, 7 ways to generate a lead, and they're all at like 30%.
Yeah.
Let's get 1 to 10, level 10 or 100% before we move on to the next one.
Right.
And as Tom says, and I think you would agree and I would agree, there's no wrong way to generate a lead or a customer or a client as long as we are generating.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of the whole marketing and business development. I don't know that we need to, how deep do you want to go there?
Oh, good question. I guess I want to clarify what Tom said about make money now and plan for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying we should all be operating on 2 tracks.
Yes.
One is top line, make as much money as possible. And then the other is be planning for the future. We should always be doing that, even if no one had said the sky is falling.
Right.
So the truth is real estate always evolves. And what I pointed out to my relatively young, relatively new, relatively healthy group of agents is, that agent in our marketplace who refuses to use our electronic contract interface, and they make you drive to their house to pick up a paper copy, and they anger you because they're so stodgy and they're 40 years in the business and they think you're them. If we refuse to adapt, we're the same, and we just can't see it yet. So adaptation is absolutely necessary, whether it was Purple Bricks or whoever stimulated that. And that's another thing that Tom said, is disruption creates opportunity. So always be willing to adapt. However, the people in the now are doing the squirrely stuff, and you just rattle off 7 different types of lead gen, and a lot of people listening are like, ooh, I'll do those 7.
Right.
I would love to see you crush one, because when we talk about top line revenue, you're going to be more efficient crushing one.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Agreed.
I had somebody in one of your classes at your brokerage argue with me and say, no, Tom says you have to have 10.
Right.
Tom doesn't say you launch 10.
Right.
If you're a top producing team, you eventually have 10 sources of business, right?
Yes, and all operating at a high level.
Yeah, you don't launch 10.
Right, yeah. And that was all done by design, by the way. It wasn't just take 10 and throw them against the wall. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But marketing and development, what does that mean? That's huge. That's like almost all the things.
Yes.
Development is how to run a business. And this is the thing that I think most of us struggle with. I don't know what to say to people. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do marketing. So that's what I said yesterday. Imagine it was a donut shop. Yeah. The first thing we do is we make the donut shop.
Yep.
Most of us skip that step. We just started marketing donuts. We had no donuts.
Right.
We started marketing our real estate service and prayed that if we ever had a client, we'd figure out what to do with them.
Yep.
Right? So what we need to do is make the donuts.
Yep.
And then market the donuts. And now we're good. So make the donuts means get your listing presentation, your buyer presentation in order. Thank you, Remax Allegiance, for making that so practical and possible, right? Yep. Practice your skills, get all your checklists in order, and start promoting the fact that you have extraordinary service. Right. Great service, market the service.
I like it.
There. Okay.
Good. Okay. Marketing and business development. Okay. Brand building. Now, luckily, many people watching right now are already with a brand. The #1 brand in real estate. Congratulations. We sell more than anybody, right? And I love that Tom, he was talking about a number of companies, but he said, and Remax sells more than anyone. I enjoyed the plug. The plug made me feel good in that, in that particular moment, although he did mention other companies and what's good about them, right? But luckily, all of us have the big balloon behind us, right? Which gives us a competitive advantage, whether we realize it or not. I always say to people, I can be anywhere in the world on an airplane, and if somebody sitting next to me says, so what do? I'm a Remax agent, and they say either real estate or they say the balloon. They never say, what's that?
What's that?
They never say, is that accounting? Is that a funeral
Yeah.
home? Are you a tax guy? Right. So we all have that advantage, right?
Yes.
And it is an advantage, right? And sometimes we tend to forget about that. So, but within that, right, we've always been like the most entrepreneurial agents, right? We can build this business within a business, right? And Adam Contos likes to say, the CEO of Remax likes to say, we're a business that builds businesses. I think that is a really good mantra. And so within, it's okay to have your own brand, right? And what does that look like, right? And it depends on, where you are and who you're competing with and, all of that stuff. But it doesn't have to be just about Remax, but you can have your brand within Remax. So how are you building out your individual or your team brand? Also, using the Remax tools at the same time and using that Remax brand. So I think, for us, it goes, all that kind of goes together. So a lot easier than being that single agent in the single brokerage that no one's heard of, that, when you go on that listing presentation, they've never heard of your company. So what's XYZ Realty? Right. Where if you go on listing presentation, I'm with Remax, you have credibility from the moment that you walk in the door. It doesn't mean that you can't screw it up. Yeah. We can absolutely screw it up, but we do go in there with credibility.
So I want to add something to your number 2, and it's interesting how deep we can go on all of these, but this is the way to weave the other thing that you're eventually going to get to, and that is that Tom said video, 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 video.
Yes.
They almost beat it to death.
Yes.
So when you're talking about developing a brand within a brand, some of them listening may be intimidated and think, well, I know that agent in my market who's good at that. They're just naturally good on camera, or they have this one shtick that makes them. Here's the thing, your authentic brand is exactly that. Authentic, and you don't have to come up with some crazy cheesy thing that is currently making you uncomfortable. It won't sell anyway, right? So figure out what makes you good at what you do. And if you're thinking, I don't know, I'm still struggling to know if I'm good at this, what do you like best about the business, right? Well, I love working with buyers. I love showing them houses. I love seeing happy families. Lean into that, baby, right? Or I love marketing listings, right? That's my thing. Okay, great. So whatever your thing is, that's the beginning of your brand, and then we'll get to video in a minute.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get to video today, but we definitely need to talk about video. And the whole, I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way I look. And it's like, well, has anybody seen Tom Ferry's first video? It wasn't pretty, right? I can tell you that. And it takes practice. And it's funny, we were in, I'm going to call it Jerusalem, who may or may not be watching now, but she's also a company trainer. And she was doing a video yesterday and she's like, oh my God, I hate the way I sound. And no. That's not the way I sound, right? I'm like, the video, it's like exactly the way you sound, right? That's just the way that it is. And she didn't like it. And nobody likes the way they sound on video because it's not something that we hear very often. And I always say to people, if we loved the way we looked on camera and loved the way we sound, we would all be on CNN and not be selling real estate, right? But eventually it becomes second nature. The very first time I did a Zoom show with you, I was fairly terrified, right? The very first time I did a Zoom call with a coaching client, I was like, oh my God, I'd rather be on the phone, right? But now it's like, I'm on Zoom 20 hours a week. It's like, no problem, I'm good, right? We're good. Okay, so trusted advisor consultations, AKA presentations. We hit on this, that Remax Allegiance has provided our associates at a very nominal cost, I believe, these custom books, which gets you like 90% of where you would want to be, if not more, right? It's as close as I can get the agent to where they need to be without customization, right? There's always going to be some differentiators among agents and teams and whatnot, but these books are like almost right there.
Yeah.
And, are you the agent that still walks in the house with the, 1980 Remax envelope with the tilted balloon, and you in your presentation is a CMA? It's not a listing presentation, right?
Yeah.
So, where are you in the presentations? Where does that presentation experience begin? I think we've talked about that before. Where does the experience with the seller begin? Is it when you walk in the door? Is it the presentation that you send to them over with overnight mail, or you drop off with a bottle of wine. There's all sorts of different ways.
With our class this afternoon, the pre-listing process. See y'all there. Anyway, keep going.
Like, well, that's going to be at 2 Eastern, I think, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. So there's different ways to do it, but I've always lamented that we're so willing to chase buyers and leads. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm throwing Zillow $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. But then when we get an appointment, right, we wing it, mm-hmm. right? Oh yeah, I'll go show you the house. And then it's like, oh yeah, so what are you looking for? Okay, I'll see you Sunday.
Right.
You don't pull them into the office or a coffee shop or a hotel lobby or, whatever the nice meeting place is that you want to take a client and go over, how do you buy a house in today's market? And I don't care if they've never bought a house or they've bought 10. Today's market is different than when they transacted before, mm-hmm. right? Is it multiple offers? Can you have a home inspection? Will the seller fix anything? Do they want to do a credit? What's the earnest money? Do they have earnest money? Is it liquid? Can they write you a check? Do they have a checking account? Are they millennial? Do they not have physical checks? This is all stuff that should be discussed before you write the offer,
right?
Right. What's the days on market? What's the discount you can get? Are things selling at 98%, 102%, or at 80%?
Yep.
If the client gets, if the list price on the condo is 500 and they're like, I'm ready to offer 425 and you about have a stroke as the agent, whose fault is that? It's your fault as the agent because
Correct.
You never had the discussion about what the discount is.
Correct.
So when is all that taking place? Folks, that's the presentation. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take place. You can't do that when you're showing them their first house when you just met them off of Zillow.
Well, we're going to get pushback. And so here's the but that I've heard that I buy into. And that mm-hmm. is, when you are a Zillow baby, when you insist on doing the Zillow shtick, you probably do have to pop out of the toaster like a Pop-Tart.
Oh, show one or two. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Show one or two and then close for the appointment.
But if they push back, if they don't have time, mm-hmm. then they don't have time to buy a house.
Exactly. And they're not going to be loyal to you. They're going to be talking to 20 different agents, right? And then at the end of your amazing presentation, that's where you go for that exclusivity. And if it's not in writing, it's that handshake.
Yep.
And if you want to do that handshake and say, listen, have I provided enough value to you today where you feel like I'm the person that can help you buy your dream home? Yeah. Are you willing to work with me exclusively? If they waver, you have a problem. And if they don't, they shake your hand. And if they want to go behind your back and lie, that's on them. That's the way I look at it. But if you don't ask and have the conversation, then you're going to get cheated on every once in a while.
Well, and everyone who's listening who's thinking, no, this is difficult to get, that's a limiting belief. I mean, I sell real estate. I joined a teeny tiny little RE/MAX office way back in the day. They're long gone, but they had a rule. And I don't know why they had a rule, but you weren't allowed to work with a buyer if you didn't have it signed. And I was scared to death. Right. I was new and I was clueless, but I got that dang thing signed and I never knew any different.
Right. And if you just won't do that, then by God, you've got to do the handshake agreement. That's what I would say.
Well, but I'm just saying, then you haven't practiced.
Right.
If you're having to lean on the handshake, that's the outlier. It really is.
I agree. Do something. Do one of the two. Maybe we can agree on that, right? Do something.
So we're at number 3 of 5, which was be the consultant.
Yes.
Provide consultative services.
Yes.
Don't just stick them in the car. Okay, go ahead.
Well, and then I just have to lament how we handle sellers too, right? We get and I appreciate you're trying to move me along with 4 minutes left. We get the call, hey, do you want a part-time job? It's going to take 3 months from start to finish, and I'm going to pay you 20 grand. That's what these listing calls are.
Yep.
And yet we go there and we wing it.
Yep.
And it drives me crazy, right? Yep. So have your system, whether it's sending the book in advance, whether it's bringing the bottle of wine over with the flowers, whatever it is, spend a little extra money to get the $20,000 part-time job.
Well, in all fairness to everyone listening, I think most of us were taught this way. It was go out there and fake it till you make it. Pretend you have donuts, right? Talk about donuts.
Right.
If you ever get somebody who's interested in donuts, figure out how to make donuts then. Don't worry about it now, right? And so the problem was we ended up with someone and we faked it and we made one donut, right? Yep. And we're still faking it because we weren't told that we needed systems to stand on. So, not your fault, everyone listening.
Right.
Not our fault either, but it's time for us to provide extraordinary service in exchange for $20,000.
I like it. Okay, number 4, transfer skills to team to maintain relevancy and continuity of experience. I thought, so when Tom Bilyeu spoke on Friday, somebody asked the question of, I'm a control freak, but I'm at my max. I know I cannot do anything else without hiring. Yep. And what he said, he's like, I think he said it sucks. Mm-hmm. It's the hardest thing that you'll do, yep. But we will all reach a tipping point of you cannot grow anymore without hiring staff. I could not run Remax Allegiance with 60 or 70 agents and employees, or if you take out the employees, 330 agents by myself. Mm-hmm. And can you imagine? It literally would not work.
No.
So, at some point you have to scale up, and then how do you handle, but I'm a control freak, I can't let go. I thought he was really interesting what he said. They're not going to do it as good as you would. And you just got to live with it. And I don't even know that I necessarily agree with that, because there's parts of stuff that I'm good at, but there's other stuff that Chuck Klein's better at than I am, Helen Malakoff, Melissa Chavez, et cetera, et cetera. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, but I thought it was very interesting that he was like, you need to get in this mindset of you need to hire to grow. It's going to be a bumpy road.
Yep.
But if you want to go there, then this is what you've got to do. Some people don't want to, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I know we're going to run out of time, but your thoughts there.
Well, I don't know. We can go over a tiny bit to
sure.
get to
yep.
5. So I agree with you that I disagree with him. I think it's going to be the rare occasion that you can't hire someone who can do it better than you. That's a hiring challenge. That is common. It is common that your first 1 or 2 hires actually won't be very good, and it will suck. And this is part of your learning curve.
Right.
And it's just part of the path. But I think that you are right that we can't be all things, and we aren't charismatic and idea driven and really, really expansive and really detail oriented. Like, no person is all those things at once.
Right.
So but I think he was wise to say, guess what, it's going to suck. And that's what I say to my people, because they think they want an assistant and then they try, and it's so painful that they run away from it. Guess what? It's super painful, and you don't have the skill to do it. That's painful. So, but you're not going to get there from here unless you slowly get the skill.
Yeah, and it's hard. And your first one may be a mess, which is why we're always preaching, have a job description, go through the hiring process, use the DISC. Don't hire the first person that, our front desk people, we go through a process, because at one point we had this revolving door years ago. It was like, oh, they answered the Craigslist ad, let's get them in. The agents will be happy. The agents aren't happy if they're gone in a month.
Yeah.
So longer tenured employees, many people end up moving on eventually anyway, but having a strong hiring process, we can talk about later.
You said it's a mess, and the reason it's a mess is because you're a mess.
Yes, agreed.
And maybe it's like, oh, I know that. I know I'm a mess. That's the reason I'm hiring an assistant.
Yep.
Guess what? It's really hard to attract talent to mess.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. I'm a hot mess. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of freaked out and exhausted, and I'm a little angry. Come work here.
Yeah.
No.
That's a lot of agents, though.
You won't attract talent. Well, let's get you some therapy and some vitamins, and then let's hire.
Right. But no, the whole scaling thing, and I think you and I have seen it within Tom's organization as well. Just the 3 years that we've been there, the hiring that he's done, which has enabled him to take off. And he would be the first person to say, the person that runs the company is like his opposite. And people joke about it all the time. We've had speakers that have joked about it, right? Number 5, negotiation mastery. I think that gets back to what you hinted on also a minute ago of knowing what to say. That's part of it.
Yep.
We actually heard from a negotiation master, Chris Voss, last week, who I think had a couple interesting, really good tips, and I'm starting to read his book now. But your thoughts on negotiation mastery?
Ooh, I'm so glad that you let me say something about this. I think a lot of us believe that negotiation is this crafty, calculating, manipulate the person to get the thing that you want away from them, right? And a lot of us are intimidated by the concept. Oh, I wish I was a strong negotiator. Man, I don't know. Well, I say certainty is the strongest negotiating position. When you know the stats, when you know the motivation, when you know what's going on, it makes you a really strong negotiator. And I would say that I'm not a crafty negotiator. When I'm strong, it's because I'm certain. I just know what is, and I don't back down from it, and I communicate it in a very calm way.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the thing that Chris Voss, those of you who are going to read his book, Never Split the Difference, the thing that you're going to learn from him is you've got to be in their heads, right? It's the strategic empathy. You've got to understand what it is they're after and try to find a way to either quiet their nerves or give them what they need. And then they're on your side. So often, we were talking about this yesterday at the brokerage, I feel like we are negotiating with our own clients because they think they're negotiating with us. I had this buyer, remote buyer. She's trying to buy a house remotely while you and I are in California. She's trying to buy a house in Colorado, and she's not even in Colorado.
Okay.
She said to me over the phone, I'm a salesperson. If I get a no, that means I'm talking to the wrong person. I was like, oh, okay. Because she just was determined to get a bargain. And we are at 100.07% of asking MLS wide in my market.
Yeah, there's not many bargains.
And she was competing, and she had a contingency. And when I told her that wasn't going to fly, she's got to beat me up. I'm the only one she's talking to.
Right.
And so I finally said, I'm not negotiating with you. I just had to lay it out.
Right.
I'm not the one you get to bend over.
Yes.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. So, but maybe that was an abrupt way to say it. She was a very abrupt person. She ended up apologizing to me yesterday for being such a head case. But she was pretty. But I just let her. I let her pound. I let her vent. I let her do her thing. And that was the way I kept things stable. But I would say the foundation to strong negotiating is knowing your stuff, and then the skill will grow beyond that.
I like it.
Read his book.
Cool. Okay. We are over. It's always good to see you.
Barely. We started slightly late.
We did.
So
anything else? Yes.
Well, let's recap, right? We talk about, will the economy shift? The economy will always shift, right?
Yep.
There's never a bad time to be running a stable business and have a stable house, right?
I like that. Yes.
Are there disruptors? There are always disruptors. Fax machines went the way of the past, right? Stuff always changes. It's challenging, I think, to be the marketing department and the tax department and the shower and the lister and to be all the things in the business and to keep up with technology. I think it is challenging. Welcome to the century that we live in.
Right.
It just is. Okay, I'm sorry. It's tough. Hire somebody who's more techie than you. And then the 5 skills, I would say look at the one that's going to benefit you most and give yourself a timeline. Right? Say, I'm going to spend this amount of time developing my skill in a certain area, and then check in with a buddy.
Yep,
and
agreed.
Move on to the next.
Accountability is a good thing.
Deadlines are a good thing.
Cool. So anybody that wants more accountability in their lives, arlingtonroom.com, 8:35 Eastern, every Monday is my accountability group. Feel free to join us. We're on and off in 15 minutes. So I think we're going to leave it there. Always good to see you. Thanks for your time today.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Thanks.